35 pro-life groups joined forces to write a letter to Congress addressed to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Why did they write him? Because despite 2 years of delays, the Department of Justice and D.C. Chief of Police have not provided information on any investigation into the DC-5. And just last week, hopes for any autopsies or investigation were dashed when reports came through that President Biden's administration instructed the DC medical examiner that they had no use for the bodies of the DC-5. So, who are the DC-5? In Episode 1, we heard from the woman who found the box of babies, known as the DC-5. Today, we speak with 2 doctors who gave their expert analysis on the children and how their lives were ended in brutal and possibly illegal infanticide. Join us as we speak with neonatologist Dr. Robin Perucci and former abortionist turned pro-life doctor, Dr. Kathy Altman. This is Episode 2 of Exposed: Abortion in America, the DC-5, the doctors weigh in.
My name is Robin Perucci. I'm a neonatologist and in full-time clinical practice in neonatal intensive care unit.
Tell me when you first became aware of the DC-5?
I was contacted by a reporter. I was asked, would I mind looking at some pictures of some babies that were found.
How were you able to assess the wounds and to see the children?
Yeah, the reporter who contacted me had both video and still pictures of these babies that they were literally lifting out of some plastic containers that had been obtained. It wasn't, at that time, I wasn't made aware of from where. They might have said that they, had received them from a dumpster. That part I just remember saying, really was about, could you look at these pictures and tell us what you think? I was told that they were outside an abortion clinic. And I thought, well, I can look. And then they kept showing different babies that were of sizes that were sometimes equivalent and sometimes bigger than little ones who I have the privilege of caring for.
And what age do you care for?
So as a neonatologist, I care for babies who are as small as 22 weeks gestation all the way to term infants.
What was the first thing that struck you when you saw the video and the photos?
How perfect they were. And I remember one of them in particular, I kind of gasped because this little one was so perfectly formed. And then, there's the horror of seeing the other little ones that were not as intact, but certainly well-formed, various pieces. And it's hard to look at any human being who's been harmed. And, these little ones clearly had been harmed. They certainly were human beings who had been traumatized.
Talk to me, though, about children at this age.
Oh, goodness. These little ones recognize the voices the people that they've been listening to while in utero, their parents, people who are around them, they come out with a personality. Some of them are quite lively. They are all capable of being irritated by having their temperature taken. They respond to being comforted. These little ones can feel pain. In the neonatal intensive care unit, it is the standard of care to treat the baby's pain who we care for. We know this because of the immediate and long-term effects that painful procedures can have on these little ones.
Well, Dr. Perucci, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that in fetal surgery, this is well beyond the point at which anesthesia is administered, correct?
Yes. And it is standard of care. They do give pain medicine both to the mother and separately to the little one, to the baby, specifically because there are better outcomes both immediately and long-term when it's treated. And it's more than just decreasing movement so that the baby doesn't wiggle when a procedure is being done. And we know this from, honestly, from a quite horrifying study that was done a number of years ago. Actually, as recent, it was just 1992, and it was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, where they actually compared term babies, those who went to open heart surgery with anesthesia and those who went to surgery without anesthesia. And we no longer take babies to the OR anymore without anesthesia. I dare you to ask any parent who's had a baby in the neonatal intensive care unit whether their baby could feel pain or not. Every single one of them would tell you, of course, and they expect me to do something about it, as well as trying to mitigate it or get the baby into their arms so they can be comforted. That's all just normal care in the NICU, and it's helped improve our outcomes by paying attention to it.
What do you think those children inside the womb were experiencing at or before this was happening?
Boy, I mean, unreflective pain. Pain that you can't describe it later to other people, but just because you can't complain about it doesn't mean it didn't exist. It changes you. These little ones had pain based on what we know about caring for babies of the same gestation after birth. I've watched it. I've been smacked by tiny little hands if you try to start an IV or position them for a procedure, trying to intubate, put them on the ventilator. Boy, there are times they absolutely are not impressed. I do think these little ones hurt, and I can't imagine what that must have felt like.
I do have to note that there is no confirmation that any of the DC-5 children had any prenatal diagnoses. In fact, I did read some analysis that said it appears that all 5 did not. But I think the only way to know that would be for the autopsy and investigation to actually happen.
For people who doubt, I would point to, there's babies who are literally missing part of their brains, or their brain is malformed, babies with anencephaly or hydrocephalus, they're mostly fluid. But even these babies has been well studied and shown that they react to stimulus that's clearly uncomfortable for an adult, and they're also able to be comforted. But the ability to feel pain, that's so basic. It's because it's protective. It keeps us safe to move away or attempt to when we're threatened. So, yeah, it's heartbreaking to think of any baby intentionally being hurt or feeling that amount of pain.
Dr. Perucci, how would you like the DC-5 children to be remembered? What are they a symbol of?
I think they're a symbol of a culture that sees life as dispensable. I don't know what those moms were going through, but I'm so sorry there wasn't an opportunity to reach out to them and make sure even now, are they okay? Because there's two victims. There's the babies, there's the moms. I don't know that they truly received informed consent. And if someone asked them, what brought you to this place? If anyone had taken that time, would they have chosen differently? Well, we won't know, but I hope that it's a moment that causes everyone to pause at how important life is, and that there's no such thing as a life that's worthless or literally worth less than another. And I hope we all pause to realize the people around us are fragile, and any one of us could be hurting. How do we reach out so that we don't end up in positions where we're trying to choose one life over another, and how to simply survive?
So my name is Dr. Kathy Altman. I'm a retired OBGYN. I practiced for years in Florida. I'm still board certified, but I no longer have an active license. I'm a fellow of APLOG, the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs, and then I'm an associate scholar with Charlotte Lozier Institute.
How was it that you were able to even assess or look at the wounds?
Well, I got a call and he sent me the video of the examination of the babies and asked me if I could help them with giving them some gestational ages and also an impression of what type of procedure they had done.
Why are you uniquely qualified to speak to this? What is it about you and your background that gives you unique insight into this case?
Well, I used to be extremely pro-abortion. I had an abortion. I was determined that no woman should have a baby that she didn't want. I felt like abortion was a woman's right. I not only learned how to do first trimester D&C procedures, but I went outside the program and did a special preceptorship to do the D&E or dismemberment procedures. Once I had my license, I got a job at an abortion clinic to make extra money. And I was very good at what I did, and I was proud of what I was doing. I felt like I was helping women. Eventually, a Christian friend was brave enough to approach me and said, I know that you feel strongly about abortion, but would you read this article? And I did. And as I read this article, the article compared abortion to the Holocaust. And suddenly I realized why the German doctors could do what they did. And it was for the same reason that I could do what I was doing. And that was that we didn't consider our victims as human beings. And at that point, I realized that I was a mass murderer. And right at that time, Ted Bundy was in the news. He was a serial killer. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've killed a lot more people than Ted Bundy.
When you were performing abortions, what gestational age?
These babies were big enough that the only time I had any qualms about it doing abortions was when I was on my neonatal rotation, and I realized that some of the babies we were trying to save were the same size as babies that we were aborting. Oh. And so these were, babies that were viable, probably 23, 24 weeks. And it kills me to say this, but I had the mentality of the bigger the better. It was a challenge. And it's hard to imagine now how I could be this way, but I didn't see them as people.
And can you describe for us what a DNX procedure is? Because as I understand it, that is something that has been referenced into potentially what happened with the DC5 children.
The second one, the baby girl one, appeared to have undergone a DNX. And in that procedure, the baby is, the cervix is overdilated, and then and that takes 1 to 2 days. And then the doctor goes in and suctions the fluid to bring the baby down lower in the uterus, and then grabs whatever they can grab, usually the feet at that age, and pulls the baby down into the birth canal, and the head gets entrapped because the cervix isn't big enough usually for the head to come through. Now, sometimes the whole baby pops out, but in general, the head becomes trapped, and then the doctor will take a scissors and insert it in the back of the skull, and then open the scissors and then put in a suction device to suction the brains out. And then that collapses the head enough that the baby can be removed. And it's also called an intact D&E. It's also what is called a partial birth abortion. So the procedure is the DNX or intact D&E, but if it's done on a live baby, then it's considered a partial birth abortion, which is illegal.
Could you describe for me what baby girl 1 looked like?
She was kind of curled up in a ball. She has one eye open. The back of her neck is traumatized. You can see where she was, forcefully pulled down, and some of the skin separated on her neck from the force. And then you can see the hole in the skull in the back. And at one point, someone was questioning, well, this was an anencephalic baby. That looks like an anencephalic baby where they don't have a brain. But with the anencephalic babies, they don't have the skull, and you can't see it as well in the photograph, but in the video, it's very clear that this looks like a normal baby that just had her skull collapsed as the brains were removed. Sweet, sweet looking little baby.
What struck you about the size of the children?
Well, they were so developed, and these are babies that could have been in the first one, baby boy 1, could easily have been in the nursery. Wouldn't have to even go to the NICU. Baby girl 1, she was the one that appeared to have had the DNX. Certainly was at the size that she could have survived, and probably would have been in the NICU for a while. There was also a baby there. That baby was still encased in the amniotic membrane, so that was obviously an induction. And the physician there, who's the abortionist, he claimed that he killed the babies by cutting their umbilical cords first and letting them bleed to death, and then he did the procedures. But he was also, I think at one point, known to have said that if a baby does survive, they don't do anything to save it, which is why it's so important to have these Born Alive acts, that if a baby does survive abortion, that they're required by law to rescue that baby and give that baby the same kind of care that any other baby would be given at the same gestational age.
I saw the photo you're talking about with that particular baby. It was so disturbing to see an entire baby it just looked like in a slumber in this amniotic sac. So can you just walk me through how does that even work?
Well, the uterus starts, they give the medication to make the uterus contract, and it's just like the delivery of a regular baby. And sometimes they are born with their membranes intact, but this baby, apparently the uterine contractions were strong enough and the cervix dilated enough that the water didn't break, and it was just delivered with the placenta and the amniotic membranes intact.
How do they die?
Well, once they're disconnected from the uterus, so the oxygen and all the nutrients are coming from that interface between the placenta and the uterine wall, the endometrium. And so once that's separated, then they're going to die of asphyxia. They're not going to have any oxygen.
I know we have to talk about baby girl number 2, but this one was incredibly brutal. Could you just explain to me about this one?
So in baby girl number 2, I hate to admit it, but that's the type of abortion I did, dismemberment. And in that type of abortion, it's not usually done until after 14 to 15 weeks. But the physician goes up and ruptures the membranes, uses the suction to suction out all the fluid. Again, in that case, the cervix has been dilated for 1 to 2 days with something, to make the cervix expand. And then the abortionist goes up with the clamp and just grabs whatever they can grab, usually an arm or a leg or one of the extremities, and just using a twisting motion will pull that part down through the cervix, and then twisting and pulling will separate it from the rest of the body because the cervix is holding the rest of the body up. So with tension, traction, you can just pull it off. And as the bigger the baby gets, the harder that is, which is why they developed the intact DNA or the DNX, because it got too difficult to pull the arms and legs off. But in baby girl 2, you can see where, the arms and legs have been pulled off, and after you think you've gotten the arms and legs, then you go up and you try to grasp the body and crush the body, and then crush the head and pull those pieces out. And I was always happy when I would see this white stuff coming out, because I knew then that I had crushed the head, because that was the brains.
What struck me was every single piece of this divided tiny human is recognizable. I mean, there's just different parts there that are very clearly human.
Absolutely. This baby was fully developed.
And the face is visible too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, these babies are fully developed. They've got all their parts. They're just needing a little time to get a little size on them. Actually, as I was reviewing the video footage, it made me cry. And I thought about how I worked so hard to make the procedures I did painless for the mother. Now, it is a painful procedure, and unless you're put to sleep, it hurts. But I tried my best to make it as painless as possible. But I never once thought about this baby that was alive and having its arms and legs pulled off. It just, horrendous.
First off, thank you for sharing what I know is something that's not very easy to share, and it's not very easy to look at the faces and the bodies of the DC5 children. What do you hope that these children serve as a symbol for?
Look at them and see what abortion really is. And I think if everyone saw these pictures, abortion would end.
Despite many doctors who have reviewed photos and video of the DC5 babies, the DC medical examiner has kept the babies' bodies for 2 years and still not conducted an autopsy. From Exposed, Abortion in America, the DC-5. This is episode 2. The doctors weigh in. Join us for our next episode as we explore why there's a lack of journalistic curiosity from the mainstream media when it comes to reporting on the DC-5. And we'll hear from one brave reporter who has kept on the case. We'll talk to her and find out what happened when she walked through the doors of the Washington Surgery Center to confront the abortionist. Time is critical, as the bodies of these children, the DC-5, could be sent to the incinerator any day. If you, like us, want an investigation and an autopsy done to confirm the truth of the children's untimely demise, please contact Mayor Muriel Bowser and the DC Chief of Police. Please tell them that you demand justice and to not destroy the bodies of the DC-5.